everyone. In this video, we are going to be talking about 5 and not 50 shades of branding. So trust me, this is a quick brush on your concepts on branding. So basically, a refresher course. What do you think about it, Rinku?
Well, of course, we're all set for talking about branding, but with your mention of 50 Shades, I got transported to another world for a moment. But there is no scope of getting distracted today. So let's get to our conversation.
So yes, without wasting any more time, let's get to the first shade, and that is understanding the term branding. So what do you think about it, Rinku?
When you ask me that question, I want to talk about two terms here, not just one. So before we address branding, of course, that's what we're going to talk about a lot. I want to talk about the term brand. And, that's something I think it's so important.
Wow. I think I was over anticipating, but yes, I was right. I knew something or the other you're going to make out of branding. So yes, I'm super
Well,
excited.
I'll tell you why I'm going to do that. But before I get into the definition of brand, of course, you can Google it and find it. Let me ask you this question, Archana. What's the brand that comes to your mind right now?
All right. Right now, I can think of iPhone, and that is Apple. Yes.
And why so? Why do you think of Apple, iPhone?
I've been using it for quite some time, and I'm also thinking of changing my phone. So I trust the brand and I love it.
All right. So with your answer, you've just answered or defined brand by itself. And I'll tell you how. Look at the smile on your face when you talk about your phone. Look the firm yes that you say, and look. And I want you to focus on the two words that you use: the love and the trust. Very important, because that's what brand is all about, and that's why it is different from branding. Brand is all about this intangible aspect, which is this impression or the reputation, the experience that you want to give away to your customer from your product or your services. And so important, because that's how the customers are going to fall in love with you, and they're going to be your loyal customers, right? So it's important that brand by itself is nothing, not your logo, not this any symbolic representation, not your website, not your name. It's the experience that they get in interacting with you or your product or your service or any of your channels that you use, whether it's a website or anything, right? That's what brand is all about.
Totally agree with you. I think people buy people. So when we create authentic and a brand which has value attached to it, it automatically takes a different turn. So absolutely agree with you. So now that you have actually explained brand very well, what do you think is branding?
Branding is more simpler word to understand. If you understood brand, like you said, it's all about being human, because that's all what you're interacting with. That's the paramount thing to know. Branding by itself is something that you do. It's an action that you take to create that identity. So if you're in a business or if you're in a profession and you're catering to certain customers, then you got to have that identity to yourself, and you got to give the name to the face or the face to the name. They all have to talk to each other, and that's what branding is. It's the action you take on the brand that you want to establish to the customers that you're looking at. So that's very important. And to explain it further, and with the risk of disclosing our ages here, which I'm not very fond of, but I want to take you back to your memory lane, Archana. Tell me the first advertisement that you can recall from your childhood.
All right, going back, and now that you say that we need to preserve our age factor, however, I'll still be very open. I think I can recollect the Nirma ad very well, because that was
Yeah,
something which was repetitively played, and the jingle, even now, I can actually kind of dance over it.
absolutely. And what do you remember from that ad? See the jingle that you mentioned, and you remember that little girl with that white sparkling
Right.
clothes, and she was dancing. Of course, the music was there, so we connected to
Yes,
the entertainment factor of it. The jingle itself said "Doodh si safedi," which is
right.
for white clothes and for
Yes,
sparkling clothes. You need to rely on Nirma. And then
right.
the other thing that was very important there was they were trying to attract the housewives there, because they were their prime consumers. And that's where in the jingle they use some common housewife names. Sujata, Lata, something they say and they sing
Yes.
about. I wish I could have sung it for people
But I
to
think there was a very
understand it.
strong connect that was built with that advertisement.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes. And that's what we are saying. So the brand that they were trying to create, the experience that they wanted to create was with the housewives, the target customers, they wanted to make it a household name, so they used and connected with them there, use an entertainment factor to engage the people, and that's where the whole branding had taken place. The other brand
Yes.
that I think from the similar, I think the same time period is Lalita ji. Remember
Absolutely.
that
Yes.
face? I can still think. I mean, that picture comes to in front of my eyes when I think of that name. And Surf did the same thing with that advertisement. I think that was the beginning. It was late 20th century when they were trying to form, and that was the time when people were trying to form an emotional connect. It was
True.
just the beginning, and they were trying to create a connect here also with the housewives. But how was it different? The uniqueness about Surf was it said it's expensive, but it's a smart choice that you make. So the same
Yes.
audience, but they are still creating a niche here, saying it's expensive. So if you choose Surf, you're becoming a smarter housewife there, and
True.
that's how I think this should be able to explain the whole concept of brand and branding that we are trying to talk.
Absolutely. So, understanding what branding is, it is about the uniqueness that we're talking about. And I think every brand, and per se, every individual that we ever talk about, is carrying a
Mhm.
brand within themselves, right?
Yep.
All right. So, now that we know the first shade very well, here comes the second shade, and that is why is branding so important? So,
It's never enough to talk about this. And again, if you understand brand and if you understand what I just talked about branding, I think people should know that all we are trying to do here, whenever we set up a business or whenever we are out for work, all we are trying to do is create more customers for us, right? It's all about creating more business, and that is through your customers. And we will talk about these trends and the strategies and the approach in next shade. However, we cannot deny the fact that the customer has become a very important part. Archana, they do not buy your products; they buy your experiences. That is, they buy your brand. And we are
yes,
buying in communities, in tribes, like iPhone by yourself. It's the community of people who are Apple fans, right? So it's a whole set of communities which are going after you. So you have to think of branding as more serving for a customer. And why
true,
should you do that? Of course, it helps you, like we said, very simply put, it helps you create unique identity. So you are recognizable, you remember, you're remembered by your
yeah,
audiences. Second, it helps you get your niche market. And they are able to, you're able to add a brand value. So you can
true,
play around with the price at certain point
yes,
in time. I mean, we all can pay. You pay a premium to buy an iPhone. There are definitely lesser price phone available, but you would go for iPhone. So the customer is ready to pay a more price if there is a good brand that you create. There is definitely a competitive advantage if you make it unique, and if you stand out
yeah,
in the market. I think it will help you get a competitive advantage. And for sure, you will expand, you will grow, and if you manage it well and you rightly place it, I think you don't only get more customers, but you get on to have customer loyalty, which is so important right now. So I think when we
can't
say
agree
why
more.
branding, yeah, absolutely.
So, yes, I think branding, as very rightly said by you, the moment you trust somebody, the moment you feel that something is going to work for me, and that is when exactly that you have to understand, or the person understands that my branding is absolutely rightly placed. So, it's all about
Right.
placing yourself with your values and your beliefs. So, very rightly put, Rinku. I totally agree with that. And now I'm also wanting to share, and I think you would also want to share. There's so many kind of limiting beliefs that are attached to branding, and starting about understanding more of it, let me hear something from you, and I would also want to share my experience on that. So, what is your
Yeah.
again take on this?
Absolutely. See, what happens is that there's so many concepts which are available to us. It's very simply put, and when we talk about it, say, yeah, what's a great deal? But we still don't find people following it, right? It's so difficult for people. So why is it that people are still, there is this stigma, I would say, about branding, because there are some misconceptions that people carry and myths. So I don't think this first and second shade is complete. The what and whys of brand is complete unless we talk about branding blues and the feelings that people carry and that we experience from our interactions. So let's do a quick rapid fire on what are some of the myths. What do you say?
I love rapid fires. So, yes.
Do you want to go first?
All right. So, I think the first myth that I almost hear from everybody who I come across in regards to branding is branding, marketing, and advertising is all the same. So I think most of the people kind of get intertwined between all of them together. So
Yeah,
that's a very, very big thing. And it should be understandable that all of these segments are absolutely different.
absolutely. And how are they different, Archana? Branding is, like we said, it's about an action that you take on creating that identity. But now that you understand your brand, you have created your identity, you need to carry this and communicate this to your customer, right?
Yes.
And that vehicle that you use, it could be advertisement, it could be marketing. So there are different terms. Do not mix it up because we hear it a lot. Ma'am, I've got my website done. I will help me in digital marketing. We don't want to create a branding nahi karna. We
Huh,
hear
bilkul.
this. So let's not mix those terms. Let's understand these are different terms.
Yeah,
One of the misconceptions that I hear a lot, and I hear a lot because I deal with smaller enterprises. And one thing that the moment you say word brand or branding or strategies, the response you get is, it's not meant for us. It's very expensive, or the feeling that they immediately draw is, here she is to make some money because she's going to talk about all this money stuff and expensive stuff, and I'm
true.
not interested in. And where am I going to get that fund from? So I do want to tell people that it's not about the cost. Of course, nothing comes for free. Designing of a logo, designing of a website, things can be done in a very limited budget. But the
True.
first thing is about, like I said, I'll keep saying it, brand. The brand, the experience that you want to create, put some work on it, sit down, think about it. That doesn't cost anything. So
True.
I think it's all about the mindset more than the budget. It's not about budgets can be worked out and things can be done in phases. And I always tell people it is foolish to sit and assume that things will happen by themselves and
True.
that money, it's going to be expensive. You can't assume things. You have to work on your brand and branding. You cannot get away with it. Any other misconception that you hear?
Absolutely agree with what you said. Now, another misconception that I find in people is they feel once they have created a brand, it is a one
Hmm.
time action. So
Yeah,
it is not that you've created a brand and then you keep it in the almirah or keep it on the side. You need to keep working on it. You need to keep recreating it. You need to keep working on your values and beliefs over the period of time. So it is an
yeah,
ongoing process and it is not a one time action. So I think that is very, very
absolutely.
important for everyone to understand. As with bigger organizations, how your customers keep changing. Similarly, with you, your beliefs and values, you need to understand what is my segment and what is my area of perfection. So I think that is very, very important.
Because there's a lot about consumer behavior these days that is happening, and the market is so dynamic. The customer expectations are changing. It's going fast. You have to cater to that, and you have to understand that it's changing very, very dynamically.
Very
The
true.
things are changing, and not just the future trends will help you understand that, but also some of the history. And I want to tell you a quick history about branding. You know, Branding is not a concept that emerged today. It comes from the medieval period, Indus Valley times. And about
Right.
thousands and thousands of years ago, we used branding. Actually, branding, do you know what it means?
I would love to hear it from you.
So branding, it originated from the word called branch, and that means burning the wood. And that was
Oh,
used, and the usage of that was to identify your own property. So people
okay.
would put the stamps on their livestock or on their
Wow.
material to identify it. That was in that period, and it graduated
Okay.
to the point where the people started using it to talk about their quality. So if they would, start putting some stamps or putting some symbols around it. And then in late 19th century, I think that was first time also in late 19th century when the first trademark registration was made, and that's when people started creating a personality out of it.
Okay.
So it had a whole the branding itself had a whole journey, and once it started talking about personality in late 70s, the Nirmas and the trusts
Right.
that we are talking about that period, that's when we started forming the emotional connect. And now, when we talk of today, branding is all about giving that experience because, like I said again, people don't buy product anymore, they buy experiences.
Experience.
And that's what, if you look at the latest ads, think of some of the brands that you think today, Airbnb or Netflix, they're so personalized and they connect with you on the stories. That's what it is. So what it was yesterday, it's not going to be today. It's not what it is going to work for you today. And what is working for you today is not going to work for us tomorrow. So it's ever
Absolutely
evolving,
agree.
I think.
So, my biggest takeaway from this conversation today is going to be people don't buy products, they buy experiences. And I think that is a very, very valid point, and it is going to stay with me for a lifelong. So, yes.
So I think enough said, Archana, about the what and whys and branding blues. I think we've addressed what we had to address in these two shades. It's time to take over the third shade, and that is all about
No, no,
strategies and
no, no,
how we're
no.
going
I
to
think
approach
my
it.
coffee is coming to an end, and I think I would love to refill my cup. What about you?
I agree. Yeah, I think mine is over too. So let's take a few minutes break and let's get back together and bring the remaining three shades to our listeners.
Absolutely right. So let's get back on the three shades later, and I'll catch you after my cup is full.
All right.